Welcome back to the High Five series, where we bring experts in healthcare and policy to you to answer questions about pressing issues. Today, I'm excited to have with us Congressman Tom Barrett of Michigan's 7th District and Chairman of the House Veterans Affairs Subcommittee on Technology Modernization to discuss what's happening with health policy in Congress related to Veterans Affairs. Thanks so much for joining me today for this discussion, Congressman.
Thank you for having me, Kate. I appreciate it. And hello to all your viewers and listeners.
Absolutely. So why don't we jump right in? Congressman Barrett, you are currently 6 months into your time in Congress as the chairman of the Technology Modernization Subcommittee on the House Veterans Affairs Committee. Can you tell me about a few pieces of legislation that you've been working on in the health policy space?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks again so much for having me on your podcast and for allowing me the opportunity to speak to more folks about this. You know, there's a lot going on in Congress right now, and some of that can overshadow some of the smaller, more granular things that are taking place behind the scenes of what you see on, you know, some of the big cable news networks and the nightly news and everything else. On the Technology Modernization Subcommittee on the VA that I have the privilege of leading and chairing through this term in Congress, we're working on a lot of big issues right now that are going on within the VA. Specifically, I would say the biggest of that is the electronic health record modernization. The current health record management system within the VA is old and archaic and is a legacy system that is really overdue for an upgrade. Now, that process to begin that upgrade began about 5 or so years ago, maybe more than that, and has really been stuck in a number of delays along the way with implementation and problems with that implementation going back a number of years now. And that's now being restarted. And we're doing everything we can on the committee to make sure that that is done in the best way possible so that veterans are able to access their health care and do it in a way that works for them and allows them that cross coordination between not just the institutional VA, you know, brick and mortar facilities that we see in some of our larger communities, but also allows veterans to take their healthcare and make it more portable and use it in their small towns and rural, you know, network providers that they can do through the community care program. So we're working hard on that. It's not without its challenges, to be sure, but we are doing everything we can on the committee to make sure that that is done in the way that puts veterans in the driver's seat for their healthcare in the absolute best way possible. We're also working on scheduling upgrades for the community care program. That's a little bit of a newer dynamic within the VA. It's not that many years ago that veterans were allowed to go outside of the VA to achieve their own health care in the communities close to home that meets their needs and allows them full access to that benefit that they've earned. But there's a tremendous issue of bureaucracy when it comes to scheduling those appointments. So we're working on scheduling platforms that would allow veterans to be able to achieve that a little bit easier. So those are just a couple of things we're working on the healthcare space. There are plenty more that we're going to dig into, I'm sure, but a lot of it is on kind of that back end of the healthcare side of the equation when it comes to access to benefits and access to healthcare.
Absolutely. And I know there's been a long road to get to where it is now. So in your first 6 months in Congress, you were able to get 2 veterans bills passed in the House. Could you tell me a little bit about these bills and what you have found to be the key to getting things done in the House this Congress so far?
Yeah, you know, a lot of people think things don't happen in Congress, and you know, there's certainly a lot of slowdowns and a lot of setbacks, and a lot of things that I wish ran a lot smoother. I served 8 years in the state legislature here in Michigan before going to Congress, and every legislative process is complicated and difficult to get things done, but it's, I would say, a little bit more of a direct or smoother process at the state level than it is the federal level. But I really came to Congress because I wanted to get things done. I was motivated to run because I saw that veterans like, you know, myself and friends and battle buddies of mine were not able to break through a lot of the bureaucracy within the federal government to achieve the benefits and everything that we had earned. I was really proud. The very first bill that I sponsored, the Clear Communications for Veterans Claims Act, which sounds long, but actually is pretty simple. It just requires the VA to really reduce and simplify the communications that are sent to veterans as they're going through the claims process. Many veterans may only go through that once ever in their life, so they don't develop an expertise in it. They have something that happens where they're seeking a benefit that they've earned, and they find that the process to get there is very challenging and difficult. A lot of the process and a lot of the forms and communications that the VA sends out were really developed over time by a number of internal bureaucrats, frankly, at the VA that are looking at that process from their own lens and from their own vantage point. We want them to look at it through the vantage point and the lens of the veterans that are, seeking those benefits. So kind of reducing and streamlining and making that easier for them was really important to us, and something that I think is the right thing to do. I've spoken to a lot of veterans who start a VA claim and then they never actually complete it because they feel like the benefits are so unattainable, or the communication they get back from the VA is so challenging to overcome. Any of us, even outside the veteran space, that have interfaced with the federal government, whether it's around the IRS or any other federal agency, can attest to the kind of frustration and challenge that you feel trying to interface with the federal government. It was really, really disheartening for me to learn that a lot of veterans leave benefits on the table that they've never gone the final measure to actually achieve, because they just simply can't untangle the spaghetti and the web of difficulty that comes with interfacing with the federal government. So we're trying to make that a lot easier for veterans. It's a big, important thing to me that you shouldn't have to hire an attorney or, go through a lengthy, endeavor in order to try and, get just the benefits that you've earned, because it's so important. The other bill that I sponsored that is also passed the House of Representatives right now is the Assist Act, and this would allow veterans who have a mobility limitation to achieve the benefit of having their mobility assistive adaptive equipment put on their vehicle far easier than what has been done in the past. There was an oversight in legislation a few years ago that kind of limited the VA's ability to pay for adaptive equipment vehicle modifications for veterans who have, assistive technology needs. And that was an unintended oversight of a legislative process that was done a few years ago. So we're kind of opening this up for the various different kinds of adaptive technology that exists today that allows the VA to kind of modify vehicles for veterans in a way that'll suit their needs, because we want everybody to be able to achieve their absolute, full lifestyle potential if they have an injury that really sets them back. And this is another small step in that effort to do that.
Absolutely. So it seems, it's very clear that you've already made progress in the committee so far this year. And I'd like to ask sort of more broadly, what are your priorities beyond these as the chairman of the subcommittee? And are there other issues that you've been working on? And sort of where do you see the subcommittee focusing the second half of the year?
Yeah, we're really we're going to continue to do oversight of the VA broadly as we look at this technology modernization subcommittee effort that we're going to be doing. Want to fit, kind of into the piece, if you will, of the bigger puzzle of what the chairman of the VA committee, Chairman Boss, is trying to achieve, which is to, again, kind of put veterans back in the driver's seat to achieve their benefits. And as he likes to say, the VA doesn't exist for the purpose of VA employees. The VA exists for the purpose of the veterans who have earned their benefits. And, we have great employees at the VA that are out every day trying to do the job of delivering care and benefits to veterans. But we always have to put the focus on the veterans who earn the benefits, who have achieved those, gone through the hardships of service in order to have the benefits that they've earned, that now we need to do the last step of making sure that we deliver those in the most appropriate way we can. We're working a lot around, like I said, the electronic health record piece of it. That's going to last throughout the remainder of this term of Congress. Michigan is the next state to get the rollout of the new electronic health record program, the Oracle Cerner product that the VA has contracted with. We have 4 hospitals in Michigan that are getting that sometime next spring or early summer, as well as several others in the kind of region, the VA region of our country. So that's going to be an important piece for me, because the veterans that I represent are going to be interfacing with that. My own personal care through the VA is going to be going through this new electronic health record program as well. We're also looking more broadly, like I said, at the scheduling programs and how we can get veterans access to community care. We're looking at outside of the healthcare space, the electronic GI Bill, making sure that we can reduce the amount of paperwork and burden that college students are facing when they go whether that's themselves, who's the veteran who earned the benefit, or whether they have designated one of their dependents to receive those benefits on their behalf, to make sure that that's done in the most streamlined way possible, and trying to modernize and upgrade that to where you can now, do it on an app on your phone instead of having to send it back and forth through the mail, or to verify your enrollment electronically instead of, form letters that get lost in the mail back and forth going to your home of record that may not be where you're residing in college, for example.
Absolutely. So there's a lot to be done. It's very clear.
Yeah, we're not going to work ourselves out of a job.
Exactly. So as a veteran yourself, have any of your past experiences receiving health care from the VA or a commercial provider shaped how you approach health policy as a lawmaker?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, excuse me, I've had my own, not overwhelming challenges, but I've had my own frustrations with the VA. I mean, the VA is a large bureaucracy, right? It's almost 500,000 employees at the VA. And again, I don't want to disparage any of them and the work that they're doing, because I think they're well-intentioned in trying to, move everything forward. But just as one small example, I had an appointment for an audiology appointment that I needed to have scheduled, and the VA in Battle Creek, where I go, doesn't offer that service, or they were booked and couldn't offer it in a timely way. So they sent me out to the community care network, which was perfectly fine. There are plenty of available places near my home. And they called me for scheduling. And, I travel back and forth to Washington, D.C. almost every week as a member of Congress. So I advised the person asking my schedule what my availability was. I told them I was going to be out of the state for a certain number of days. And they said they would call me back with an appointment time, and they ended up scheduling my appointment on a date where I was in Washington. And I told them, I said, listen, I'm not going to be in the state of Michigan on this day. How did you schedule me this appointment? They said, well, our system does a program where if we can't get the scheduling appointment that you've requested, we just schedule you the next available appointment. And I said, well, the next available appointment doesn't help the situation any. If I'm going to be 600 miles away from here, that really doesn't, render itself very useful. So kind of went back and forth, had to escalate it through the VA and find a new vendor to schedule the appointment, which, another group that was able to do it in a way that worked for me. I look at it as, if I'm going through this challenge as a member of Congress, and I didn't announce that to this, person who was scheduling the appointment, but I felt like other veterans are going to be facing that in a far more confusing and challenging way. I was thankful that I was able to get my appointment rebooked through another vendor, but it took some persistent, conscious effort on my part. It shouldn't be difficult to just get an audiology appointment booked, or any other appointment that a veteran may need. So to me, it's a responsibility that I have now as a member of Congress to really look out for the veterans that aren't going to Washington, D.C., that aren't serving on the Veteran Affairs Committee, to kind of look at the experiences that they're having and see how we can apply them to the solutions that we can develop within Washington, and then work in collaboration with our partners at the VA to say, how can we do this better? And what should be our standard for how we deliver care to veterans, and how can we all hold one another accountable for that?
Absolutely. So finally, I'd like to end our questions with just an ask for some guidance. What advice would you give to constituents and stakeholders who want to engage with Congress, and how can they be most effective?
Yeah, I think that, anyone, I mean, the House of Representatives in particular is supposed to be the closest body to the people, right? And so, I have a district office in my district, in the very center of my district. I think just about every single member of Congress does. There are a lot of industry groups and groups with a certain, interest, for example, that might do an organized effort to come to Washington on a certain day and advocate and meet with their members of Congress. And sometimes there are national networks, and they'll all come on a certain day, and you meet with people from your district that have a certain issue that they care about. Those are very common. And then working with the staff of members of Congress and the committees of jurisdiction over the issues that you care about is also very important. I've learned that I have to delegate a lot of that interfacing to my staff, because I'm back and forth going to different committee hearings, and traveling to the Capitol for votes on the House floor, and moving bills through the process and everything. I'd love to be available to meet with every single person who comes to Washington or comes to my district office in Lansing, but the constraints of time and distance necessitate that I have to delegate a lot of that. And many members of Congress really do have, critically important staff that really help them with that. And that's an important piece. So I would say start with, contacting your member of Congress, speak to somebody who has a shared interest in the issue that you care about. Most of us kind of arrange our staff around different issue sets that a certain member of our staff may focus more on. And then look at the committee that would have jurisdiction over the issue you care about and begin working with the staff there and visit with them and try and work the issue that you care about.
Congressman Barrett, I'd like to thank you for being here to talk about these pressing issues that are vital to informing health policy. Thank you to our listeners today. And if you want to make sure you hear each of our new episodes, hit the subscribe button before you leave. We'll see you at our next episode.